He left me standing there, suitcase in hand, boarding pass crushed between my fingers, while she clung to his arm like she'd already won. But what he didn't know was this: that moment, the one he thought would break me, became the beginning of his downfall. And when our paths crossed again, he didn't just regret losing me, he fell silent, completely shattered by what I'd become. Airports are strange places. They hold too many goodbyes and too few promises kept. But that morning, for me, it was supposed to be a beginning. The glass walls glittered with morning light, the intercom hummed with boarding calls, and my heart thumped like it was about to fly before I even stepped on the plane. Paris, our dream city. The one Aiden and I had talked about since our first anniversary. A new country, a new job, a new life. Together. Aiden had always been the dreamer, and I the believer. He painted big plans, and I filled them with faith. "Let's move to Paris," he'd said, eyes bright, hands warm against mine. "Start over. Just us. We'll make it, Lena. I promise." And I believed him. God, I believed every word. So I quit my job, packed my life into 2 suitcases, and said goodbye to my family. Every step of the way, I told myself this was love, the kind of love worth risking everything for. I even bought our tickets myself. 2 one-way seats to a future we had built with whispers and late-night plans. That morning, he was quiet. I thought it was the nerves. "You okay?" I asked while adjusting my scarf, trying to catch his eyes. "Yeah," he said with a faint smile. "Just thinking." He kissed my forehead and said he'd grab coffee while I waited by the gate. I watched him walk away, feeling this little tug in my chest that I couldn't name. It wasn't fear, not yet. It was something softer, like the air right before a storm. 15 minutes passed, then 20. The line for boarding grew shorter. I glanced at the cafe, scanning the crowd for his messy dark hair, his navy jacket. Nothing. I called him, no answer. Texted, no reply. My stomach twisted. Then I saw him. He was walking toward me, yes. But not alone. She was with him. The woman from his office, the one he'd sworn was just a friend. She had this glossy red hair that always looked too perfect, too intentional. And she was holding onto his arm like she belonged there. I froze. The air thinned, the noise around me dulled until I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. He didn't even look surprised to see me. That was the worst part. He looked prepared. "Lena," he said, voice low, guilt flickering behind his eyes. I need to talk to you." Her hand tightened on his arm. She was smiling, as if this were some twisted victory. "I can see that," I said, my voice shaking but steady enough to hurt him. "Who's she?" he sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "You know who she is." The air felt heavy, pressing down on my chest. "You said she was just your coworker." He looked at me, then at her. "Things changed, Lena. I didn't plan for this, but I can't go." For a second, I just stared. The words didn't make sense. I'd spent months building this dream with him, our new life, our plans, and now he was unraveling them in a single breath. "You're serious?" I asked quietly. He nodded. "I'm sorry." She stood there, smug, her lips curling into a half-smile that made me want to scream. But I didn't. I didn't cry, didn't shout, didn't make a scene. Instead, I felt this strange calm wash over me. Like my body already knew this pain would pass, and that someday, it would make sense. I reached into my bag, pulled out his ticket, and handed it to him. "Then I guess you won't be needing this." "Lena, wait," he stammered, stepping forward. "Please." But I was already walking toward the gate. My suitcase rolled behind me, wheels clicking against the floor like a heartbeat that wouldn't stop. I didn't look back, not once. As the plane ascended through clouds, I stared out the window, letting silent tears trace my cheeks. I left behind everything familiar, including him. But as Paris came into view hours later, I promised myself I'd never be the same woman he abandoned. The first few months were brutal. Loneliness sat beside me at breakfast, followed me through empty streets, whispered doubts in the dark. I missed home, missed comfort, missed the illusion that I had someone who loved me. But pain has a way of teaching you who you are. I started painting again, something I hadn't done in years. My apartment was small, but its walls soon filled with color. I painted everything I couldn't say out loud, the ache, the betrayal, the slow, beautiful process of healing. Each stroke was a piece of me returning to life. Art became therapy, then passion, then a purpose. My paintings caught the attention of a small gallery in Montmartre. They hosted my first exhibition 6 months later. I stood there, nervous, surrounded by strangers staring at the pieces of my heartbreak. And when the applause came, when they called my name, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: pride. Word spread fast. My art began selling. Invitations poured in. One gallery turned into three into 7. Soon, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. 2 years later, I woke up to an email that made me laugh and cry all at once. Congratulations, Ms. Marlowe. You've been nominated for the International Artist of the Year Award in New York. That moment, I realized something. The same airport where I'd been left behind had been my doorway to everything I was meant to become. When I landed in New York for the award ceremony, cameras flashed, journalists shouted my name, and all I could think about was that quiet morning at the gate, how far I'd come from the girl who had begged the universe not to fall apart. But life has a cruel sense of timing. Because as I walked into that ballroom, wearing a silk gown that shimmered under the lights, I saw him. Aiden. He was sitting in the front row, right beside her. Only this time, his suit was wrinkled, his smile forced. And her hand wasn't holding his anymore. I stood there for a moment, our eyes meeting across the room. His face went pale. The man who had walked away from me 2 years ago looked like he had just seen a ghost, except I wasn't dead. I was everything he had thrown away and more. The host called my name, and I walked up to the stage to receive my award. The applause echoed, the lights were blinding, and my hands didn't shake this time. As I held that golden trophy close, I smiled, not for the cameras but for myself. Because the woman who once stood abandoned at an airport was now standing on a stage, untouchable. And though he couldn't hear it over the clapping, my heart whispered the words I'd waited 2 years to say. Thank you for leaving. You made me unstoppable. He left me standing there, suitcase in hand, boarding pass crushed between my fingers, while she clung to his arm like she'd already won. But what he didn't know was this: that moment, the one he thought would break me, became the beginning of his downfall. And when our paths crossed again, he didn't just regret losing me, he fell silent, completely shattered by what I'd become. The applause thundered through the grand hall, but my heart beat louder. The lights, the music, the sound of my name echoing through the ballroom, it all felt surreal. I had just won Artist of the Year, standing on a stage in New York, holding the golden trophy that symbolized not just achievement, but survival. I smiled for the cameras, thanked the organizers, and bowed to the crowd. But deep down, I knew there was one pair of eyes in that audience I'd never forget. Aiden, the same man who left me 2 years ago at the airport, who replaced me with a woman he thought was better, stood now only a few feet away, staring at me like he'd seen a ghost. His expression was unreadable: shock, regret, disbelief, all painted across his face in the most satisfying silence I'd ever witnessed. After the ceremony ended, people crowded around me, gallery owners, journalists, art critics, all congratulating me, asking for interviews, snapping photos. I kept smiling, thanking them, keeping my composure. But my eyes, every few moments, found him again. He hadn't left. He just stood there, hands shoved in his pockets, watching me like someone who finally understood the price of his choices. When the crowd thinned, I felt him approach. My chest tightened, not from love, not even from anger, just from the weight of memories I'd buried long ago. Lena, he said softly, his voice familiar yet foreign. You look incredible. I turned, meeting his eyes. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence between us wasn't awkward, it was heavy, like all the things we never said were pressing down between us. You've changed, he added after a pause. I said calmly. Some changes come after losing everything. He nodded slowly, guilt flickering in his eyes. I deserve that. His voice cracked slightly. I've been following your career, you know. I saw your exhibitions online, your interviews. You made it, Lena. You really made it. Thank you, I replied, my tone polite but distant. He took a step closer, searching my face. Lena, I need to say this. I'm sorry, for what I did to you at the airport, for how I treated you. I was stupid. I thought what I had with her was love, but it wasn't. It was comfort, a distraction. I realized too late that you were. Don't, I interrupted gently, holding up my hand. Don't rewrite history. You didn't just make a mistake, Aiden. You made a choice. He looked down, ashamed. You're right, he whispered. And I've paid for it. Things with her, they fell apart. It was never real. We fought all the time, and she left eventually. I lost my job too. I lost everything. For a second, the pity tried to creep in, but I didn't let it. I'd spent too many nights crying over his choices to feel sorry for him now. He looked back up, his eyes pleading. I thought about reaching out, but I didn't know how. And then I saw you here tonight. I couldn't believe it. You're even more beautiful, stronger. God, I don't even have words. I took a breath, feeling the calm in my voice that he could never have imagined. Aiden, do you know what's funny? For a long time, I thought if I ever saw you again, I'd want to hurt you. I'd want you to feel the pain I felt that day. His gaze softened, hopeful for forgiveness. But now, I continued, I don't feel that anymore. Because what you did to me, it became the reason I found myself. I thought you ruined me, but you set me free. He blinked rapidly, words caught in his throat. I'm proud of who I am now, I said, smiling faintly. And the truth is, I wouldn't change a thing. His face fell. Does that mean, there's no chance for us? Not even as friends. Before I could answer, a familiar voice called my name. Lena. I turned. It was Noah, the creative director from my Paris gallery. The man who had seen my art before I believed in it, who had stayed up with me for nights preparing for exhibitions, who had become the quiet constant in my chaos. His blue eyes sparkled as he walked toward me, his grin wide, proud. There you are, Noah said, brushing a strand of hair from my face. They're waiting for you backstage. For your interview. And after that, dinner with the sponsors. You ready? I smiled up at him. Always. Aiden's expression shifted. The realization hit him like a slap. Noah extended his hand toward me, fingers brushing mine gently, and I didn't hesitate. I slipped my hand into his, feeling warmth, safety, something real. Aiden's jaw clenched. That's him, isn't it? He asked quietly. Yes, I said simply. That's the man who never made me feel like I wasn't enough. His lips parted, but no sound came out. He just stared, eyes glistening, not with anger, but something deeper. Regret. Lena, he said weakly, voice breaking. I'm sorry for everything. You deserved more than I ever gave you. I know, I whispered. And that's why I learned to give it to myself. We stood there in silence for a moment that felt infinite. Then I turned and walked away, Noah's hand still in mine. The crowd swallowed us, cameras flashing, reporters calling my name. Aiden was left standing alone under the chandelier, watching the woman he once left behind walk into a future that didn't include him. He didn't call out. He didn't chase me. He just stood there, eyes lowered, as if realizing that no apology could bridge the distance between the woman he abandoned and the woman I had become. That night, as the city lights glittered through the hotel window, I looked at my reflection and smiled. The same face, the same eyes, but not the same woman. I had learned something powerful in those years. You don't need revenge to silence those who hurt you. Success, peace, and happiness do that better than words ever could. Because he had once left me at an airport thinking I'd break without him. But in the end, I walked away smiling, knowing I had built a life so full, so radiant, that he could only stand in silence, wishing he had never let me go. Never chase someone who chooses to leave. Let them walk away and use that pain as fuel. Build yourself, heal yourself, and become the version of you that no one ever believed you could be. One day, the same person who broke you will see your strength and fall silent, not because you hurt them back, but because you no longer need them to define your worth. Sometimes the best closure is no confrontation, no revenge, just your peace and your glow.